Hey guys, Rinji here, and today I'm gonna be swerving my content just a little bit, even though we're gonna be talking about the same things that I usually cover on my channel, mainly dealing with people's reactions to all kinds of fictional content as well as VTubers. Today's topic, fortunately or unfortunately for some of you, doesn't feature VTubers, but it's still plenty interesting. And as you guys probably know, if you're fans of my channel, I talk about a lot of discourse when it comes to fictional characters, when it comes to how certain people perceive those fictional characters, and how these people behave towards the people that enjoy these types of characters, usually of a problematic, taboo nature. So, as you can probably tell, we're gonna get into something deeper, because otherwise I wouldn't have this preface. So today is it's kind of an eye-opening, but also a very interesting shift of perspectives. If you guys follow anti-shipper and pro-shipper discourse online, then you'll know where this is going. But for those of you that don't know what these two terms actually mean, because you're not terminally online and you're probably not engaged with these sorts of people in the first place, well, let me provide a brief explanation of what pro-shipping is. Pro-shipper, the pro-ship coming from pro-shipping, short for a problematic shipper, someone that's pro-fiction, that ships problematically ships certain characters. It's a type of person in online fandom that supports the creation and consumption of all fictional pairings. If you didn't guess that at this point, so a lot of them are going to be taboo. A lot of them are going to be morally questionable. There's going to be themes of age gaps, non-consent, and of course incest, because a lot of that does involve incest. And pro shippers, they argue for creative freedoms and separation of fiction and reality, as most normal people would do. And as you can imagine, as there are pro-shippers, there's of course anti-shippers, meaning people that are completely opposed to what the pro-shippers do. And you've probably seen these kinds of people around online, especially on social media such as Twitter, currently X. There are usually people involved in all kinds of harassment versus the pro-shippers, and it gets so bad that it doesn't just end on death threats, it doesn't end on insults of all kinds. It also sometimes goes into real life. You probably heard stories about the Genshin Impact fandom and what anti-shippers in those communities are involved with, like sending bomb threats to people they don't like, or in a different case that's probably not from Genshin Impact, baking cookies and stuffing those cookies full with needles only to present them to pro-shippers at conventions. Yes, this is a story that also allegedly happened. So not only are these people deranged, they are also dangerous to themselves a lot of times, because they are, unfortunately, a lot of them, unfortunately, subjects of grooming. They are very impressionable, as you can probably tell, people, and more than not, they are also victims of their own surroundings. So there's layers to anti-shippers, and a lot of them are crazy, but not a lot of them are irredeemable. There are a lot of stories of anti-shippers becoming pro-shippers, because the anti-shipping side of things is just so blatantly crazy and unhinged. You cannot ignore that. You have to get a little bit of common sense, and you have to adapt, because otherwise you're just gonna fall down this like endless hole, and you just might end up as the subject of today's story. As I was saying, with this swerve, let's take a look at it. Here's an account called @BojackBrand, also known as Multi-Fandom Freak. Says, "This anti-shipper shit gets dangerous. Point blank. Please read this. This is fucking wild. A mother finding her daughter's Twitter after she harassed her classmate nearly into suicide over a 3-year age gap ship. 18 and 21. Yes, dear viewers, this is a person that decided to harass somebody over a fictional age gap ship of the characters being 18 and 21 respectively, so full-blown adults, and this particular kid had an issue with that. But that's not the main crux of this particular story, because we're shifting perspectives here. We're gonna take a look at what this particular mother, someone that wasn't very much involved in any of this kind of discourse, what this mother has experienced over a pretty long period of time and how it all ended. Strap yourselves in, viewers, because this is a very long story and it's a doozy. It's certainly interesting, but it's also kind of horrifying and also incredibly concerning. And there's lessons to learn from this particular story. Whether you believe it's real or not, I have my own compunctions when it comes to this sort of stuff, but it's way too detailed to be fake, and it's way too long to just be somebody shitposting. Although I have seen a lot of weird stories online that kind of escaped reality a lot of the times, but I personally do believe this one is real. It at least feels real to me. But even if it isn't real, it certainly shows a type of person that does exist online, and it's just not a singular case by any means. So let's take a look at that. And for those of you that just don't want to stick around here, I will leave an archive of this particular Reddit post in the description of this video, so you can check it out for yourself without wasting time on me, because who has time these days to listen to such long videos? But for those that do stay, let's take a look. This story was originally posted in, I do believe it was either September of 2022, so yeah, it's a pretty old story at this point as internet terms are considered, and it was posted on Reddit on r/advice, one of very popular subreddits. People go there quite frequently and ask for all kinds of advice. This one caught people's attention because it was so unique. Advice received: I got a phone call from my daughter's school and my life has turned upside down. From this point, I will proceed reading this whole story. It's very long. I will interrupt it whenever there's a need, like input some of my commentary here and there. But otherwise, this is gonna be a very long story without many breaks. So let's take a look. Content warning: pedophilia, grooming, suicide, online harassment / stalking. Last update, hopefully. I'm so sorry for not replying to all of you helpful and kind comments. All of this has been overwhelming for my whole family, as you can imagine. Things are looking brighter. My daughter has been a part-time inpatient program and she's been enjoying it and has found it extremely helpful. She's also working with a therapist who has put a lot of effort into our situation, is now educated on this fandom anti stuff. If I'm being honest, I don't believe my own therapist would do this much for me. I'm eternally grateful for him. Where I feel I still might have failed here, he informed me he believes my daughter is most likely autistic as well. My other daughter is almost polar opposite to her, and I feel like I've been incredibly ignorant. Not to mention, I don't think I would have done differently the night everything happened. However, I feel as though I may have jumped the gun in believing she would self-harm. I did jump in the gun in that aspect. However, with how erratic she was, I most certainly did make the right choice taking her to patient care. And as you can see, we're starting with this story from the kind of the end of it, almost the tail end of it, but we'll be jumping from timeline to timeline here. And so you guys will get the whole context of it. So do not worry. This is not gonna be so anti-chronological. Let's continue. My daughter is slowly but surely coming to terms with everything that has happened. She's made way faster progress than I expected. In all honesty, I didn't know what to expect as strong as my daughter is. I assumed the worst, but she's been as strong as she always has. She's made a lot of friends at the program she's in and has been able to connect their experience to her own, especially a girl who suffered from extremely intense religious abuse. I've met her a few times and I don't feel like anyone understands how much I want to thank her. She's able now to admit the woman who was grooming her was in the wrong and is expressing grief because of what happened regarding her classmate. That's been the hardest part for us in regards to her. We've been nothing but progress and she feels incredibly bad about how she treated her classmate, but even though she's able to emotionally regulate again, there's been a lot of long nights crying and her asking how she can make up for what she's done. We really don't have the answers at times. This may seem silly to some of you, but I think any parent who's been in similar situation may understand how much this meant to me. The staff at my rehabilitation program have been incredibly talkative with me in a way I feel it doesn't disrespect my daughter or myself. No, when I went through what I had, my counselor at the time was not much help at all. But everyone at my daughter's care program, they mentioned something after the day, my daughter will ask if they mentioned it to me. My daughter had told me after we picked her up yesterday she felt horrible about discussing this sort of thing with her sister, after the topic of shame around getting your siblings involved in what you had been through was talked about in group. She had told her group everything and her counselor had suggested my daughters draw together. Last night they did. Her sister had, within 10 minutes, shown her all the sketchbooks she has that are incredibly detailed. She doesn't care much about drawing characters from shows and makes her own. She created her own little universe. She's very talented. My eldest daughter told her how amazing her story was coming along and drew something of her characters for her. I teared up a lot, everything felt normal, if not better for a couple hours. My daughter was so kind to her sister. It was really amazing. Even our youngest joined in for a bit but got bored after a while. LOL, my eldest was still paying full attention though. There was a moment where her sister had shown characters she had created who were married and one had a similar maiden name to her spouses. My daughter uses very specific names she thinks sounds pretty for her characters. I don't feel comfortable sharing exactly how in case this is something she'd like to write a book for, a show, etc. in the future. But they seem very thematic, in a way, with endings and a lot of them sounding a bit similar. And I got extremely nervous, but my daughter absolutely did not say a word and said she thought they were cute. I can't even tell you how happy I felt. So, at least, dear viewers, this story had a pretty good ending, despite how dark it's gonna be getting when we get to the past segments of it. But let's move on. My eldest also asked me for a sketchbook. She was very impressed with the drawing she was able to make using my youngest supplies and told me she felt drawing her feelings would be helpful. I don't want anyone to think I'm rewarding her for bad behavior. Feel her giving her something that she enjoys that someone was abusing her deeply discouraged, even though it's something that's encouraged for people to do. Even not in her situation who have been through abuse will be incredibly healing. I ordered her nice markers, a sketchbook, etc. I think vent art is key here. Her drawings were beautiful and I hope to encourage her passion and see her heal through it. I'm hoping eventually she'll be able to join the art therapy sessions at her part-time care program. I think it will be very cathartic for her. I'm not sure if she's aware they have it, but they do not allow her to participate as of now, understandably. They told me once things improve for a couple of months, or possibly sooner, she'll be more than welcome to join, and their main concern is her judging others' work. Her classmate's mother has been incredible to us, and she considers me a friend at this point, which is beyond me. Her kindness and ability to stay calm in these types of situations is very incredible. I don't make a lot of new friends as I'm very busy, but I'm very happy I can consider her one. She's been talking to me almost daily. Once we got past the discomfort, we've gotten very close. The legal update is what I'm sure everyone is waiting for. I contacted my local FBI branch, myself with classmate's mom, after the police had not gotten a hold of us in over a week. We did call them afterwards and they informed us that the case was still open. All that aside, the right people ended up having access to our children's accounts. We ended up getting the woman's identity in a week. I know everyone wants information shared here, but I'd much rather have her in jail for years than shamed online and have Pizza Hut delivery sent to her house. I'll give an update if nothing comes of this and she gets a slap on the wrist, but I highly doubt it. According to my daughter, on the night this began, the woman sends this stuff to lots of people my age. I was assured the other victims will be contacted. They told me they've been this type of thing with a case last year. They told us there's been a case that don't involve the fandom stuff they've dealt with, where groomers will try to be the only safe adult and will send minors things to report, while they themselves are already sex offenders. Doesn't that sound very familiar to you, dear viewers? This is a very common tactic used by groomers online, showcasing themselves, presenting themselves as the quote-unquote safe adults here. Someone, children being groomed could trust online, saying that all other people are bad and they themselves are the only safe person you can interact with, and that's pretty much how they get them. Let's continue. The grooming tactic of trying to convince child everyone around them is a groomer for a very arbitrary reason, and they are safe is becoming incredibly common nowadays. And I urge parents, if you have a small age gap with your spouse, to please be wary of your child starts acting strange about it. If you're an artist and they act very off about certain things you create that are child-friendly, be concerned. If your child calls anything that is normal creepy or predatory, despite it being normal, take their phone. My child showed no warning signs. Okay, I can't imagine how parents think their kids are just going through a phase and care about something weird or just dismiss it as a Generation Z thing. But I'm not the only one who's been through this. If I'm being honest, the only warning sign I saw in hindsight was my middle child not showing me her sketchbook as much. As someone who enjoys painting myself, I began as an adult. I never let anyone see my unfinished work. I think a lot of people here who have a hobby or profession that require pre-planning will understand. It was something I instantly began respecting and still will, as showing unfinished work to others can be very awkward. All it takes is a conversation. With my eldest, I'm hoping her art can become her way of coping. I've seen some comments on here of other parents being worried, and I don't want to make you all overparent. Please just tell them adults sending them pornography of any kind is unacceptable, regardless of the purpose. They'll tell them they are children and are under no obligation to protect children, as they are minors themselves, and any adult who expects them to help them fight predators is a predator themselves. It's an adult's job to protect them. In my own research, I've seen countless screenshots of children making posts saying, "My parents have a small age gap. Ew, I can't trust them anymore." I'm left here terrified, wondering how many of them have been groomed by someone trying to turn them against their parents. Once again, thank you all for your help and kindness. I figured out this subreddit uses point system, and I'm sorry I missed out on all of getting a point, because you all truly deserve one. I'm using a throwaway because my sister does have me added on here, and I feel as though this is my daughter's story to tell if she wishes, not mine. However, I am at a complete loss of what to do, and I need some advice. I just need to protect our privacy. And here's where the story kind of goes back to the past, so you can get all of the context that was missing. Apart from the good ending, this is where it all began, and this is where it starts to get pretty dark. So be ready for it. I, 43 female, received a phone call from my eldest daughter's 14 school this morning, explaining she was harassing and saying some very accusatory things about another student. She was being suspended and that I needed to speak with them. This was the first time she had ever been in trouble to the point where the principal was involved. I've gotten talks about her being loud in class and that sort of thing by her teachers, but nothing like this. When I arrived, my child was hysterical, screaming about how this girl, whom my daughter was previously friends with and still attends some class with, is a pedophile and that she should not be the one in trouble. I was confused and slightly panicking when you hear the words pedophile come out of your child's mouth while they're sobbing. It's extremely concerning, regardless of the situation. You would be too, but then you get a grasp of all of the situation, and you see that this is a child calling another child a pedophile, which is insane. Let's continue. I instantly feared that possibly something had happened to my youngest youngest child, 9 male. Considering this girl had hung out at our house a few times when her and my daughter were friends, but she was too upset to explain what was happening. I was just crying and mumbling. After I had tried my best to calm her down, the school's counselor had me and my daughter separated, and I was joined by my daughter's classmate's mom and the principal. They had explained to me that my daughter had been harassing and borderline stalking her classmate since they stopped hanging out as much. She had been referring to her as a pedophile for shipping these animated characters that were 3 years apart in age. It had now escalated to real life because her classmate was hospitalized for a suicide attempt. Her mother had figured out what was going on. I went to school today with images of the messages and posts my daughter was making about her, which also included death threats and suicide encouragement. When my child was called to the office, she began loudly screaming the same sentiments as she posted, causing a massive scene and causing the mother to decide on switching schools. I was incredibly disturbed. The other girl's mother was visibly upset but held it together incredibly well. She had a full right to scream at me or press charges but didn't. I was almost more hostile and defensive in the beginning than she was because I feared for my son. She had told me she knew I had no clue what was going on and that she simply wants her child to feel safe again. That I need to use the time she suspended to get her help. I agree. I was at a loss for words, but in hindsight, I don't understand how she didn't get full Malabur on me like I would have. The drive home is when things started to turn even more when it came to my daughter's behavior. She had asked for her cell phone back, and I told her flat out no. She again was now in hysterics like I had never seen her from her until earlier today. She kept begging for it and saying she did nothing wrong. I made us some lunch to try calm down the situation down. I wanted to approach it calmly. I asked her why she did this and once again told me being completely serious because said girl is a pedophile. I asked her why she felt that way and straight up faced once again told me exactly what the principal did. She believed the girl she had been harassing should be put in prison and was a pedophile because she enjoyed art of these characters together, depicted as a couple, but the police won't do anything, so she needed to take it into her own hands. Again, dark and insane. I asked her if she believes these characters exist. She said no, but had gone on a very long rant about how people drawing art of them normalizes pedophilia. These characters, I believe, are 18 and 21. And I went into very bizarre details about different fetishes and ships that upset her. As you can see here, dear viewers, if you have a child or if you see any child online talking about fetishes, you should be concerned. Children should not be engaged in this kind of discourse at all. They should be engaged with what children their age are normally engaged with and do their homework. But let's continue, because this gets just more bizarre as it goes on. At this point, I was even more worried. I fully understand the internet is a very sexual place, but the type of things she was talking about, she would have to seek out herself or had them discussed with her. I instantly started to worry if something had happened to her, and this was her way of coping. It's so out of character for her, it's disturbing. We are not a sex-negative household, and none of it none of I or my husband's family is either. The topic is something we've taken very great care to avoid anything bad happening to our children or them feeling shame in adulthood. I've done everything you're supposed to. I taught my children the proper names for their body parts when they were young, told them if anyone is touching them in their personal square, chest to knees, or says things that make them uncomfortable to inform me of their father right away. And explained consent in a way a child would understand. If you don't want a hug, that's okay. Say no, and they should respect that. If someone says no to playing a game with you, you don't force them to play. When my girls started puberty, I explained that periods, having feelings and doing things about these things privately is okay and normal. I also explained that once they get older, they want to experiment with peers, that I wouldn't judge them for it, and explain the importance of protection, only doing things if you feel ready, etc. So at least, dear viewers, this is at least a parent that's responsible for teaching their kids about how they will be dealing with changes to their bodies and mind, and how they should be able to deal with them going forward as they reach adulthood. This is big props to this particular parent. But again, we're gonna get to the part of this story where monitoring your child and what they do online becomes increasingly difficult, because the online world is its own freaking place. It's sometimes so disconnected from reality. It's very hard to imagine that things that are this concerning would actually be happening there. But let's continue. She got her first smartphone 2 years ago. I used parental controls and knew which apps she used. When I bought her current one Christmas of last year, I didn't bother to use parental controls when she received it, as I had taught her internet safety from an incredibly early age, and I believed, considering she's turning 15 soon and because of how responsible she had always been when it came to the internet, I felt she could handle it. So even this parent even took precaution to inform her child about the dangers of the internet and how to navigate it. So they're doing more than enough, but even that could not be enough in this particular case. Let's continue. I also bought her Chromebook for school when the pandemic started. She only used it for schoolwork, really, not on it a lot. I never tried to intrude on her private conversations with friends. However, I followed her on Instagram and Facebook. She had grown distant with me for the past year or so, and I assumed it was teenager stuff. She used to tell me absolutely anything and everything, and I was always there to listen the best I could. She's been in therapy since age 12, and also because of her depression, and she told me it's very helpful for her, so I wasn't too worried, and her symptoms seem to have lessened. All teenagers get annoyed by their parents at some point, and I felt giving her space was important, but now alarm bells were going off. I politely told her we could discuss this later and I need time to think. She once again asked for her phone back. I declined and asked her to give me her Chromebook for the time being. She once again got extremely upset with me and stormed off to her room. I followed her and grabbed her Chromebook. She accused me of making her depression worse because she can't talk to her friends now, which is something she's never accused me of and made me feel incredibly guilty, but my gut told me absolutely not to return her electronics. I didn't want her doing anything harmful to that girl, and I was extremely suspicious by this point. I told her I would discuss things with her father. We both need time to cool off, and that might give them back to her later. I told her try journaling to vent. She slammed the door. Least of my worries, but once again, not like her. I felt so bad doing this, but I'm incredibly grateful I did. Checked her phone, she has my phone password and I have hers. There was a mutual trust there that neither of us would snoop or intrude on each other's privacy. It was mostly for emergencies, but at this point I felt no other option. This was an emergency. What I found made this entire situation even worse. And I'm getting extremely teary-eyed typing this out. I found through the principal a lot of this has happened on Twitter, because of course, where else would it happen? If not Twitter, it's Discord, which I wasn't aware she had before then. The whole account was absolutely frightening to look at. She had her first name, birthday, and age public, which doesn't sound like a huge deal at first glance, but I scrolled through her posts. I saw quote tweets of drawing some innocent, a lot of porn. She made thousands of them, telling these people to die, calling them pedophiles, groomers, disgusting, etc. Similar sentiments she was making towards her former friend. I was horrified. None her age should be reposting content like that or be involved in communities like that, especially while sharing private information, not to mention the obsessive harassment. Some of the art I found rather disturbing myself, but these people have 18 plus in bios for a reason. Some of the worst in regards to harassment I saw had to do with the game she plays called Cookie Run, in which she would reply calling people, some being clearly younger than her, horrible names for drawing gingerbread cookies, holding hands because she had decided one of the cookies was a minor and the other was an adult, that they were related. See what I'm getting at? She almost seems to have a fixation on incest and pedophilia, and has been seeing it everything for the past 5 months. Dear Lord, I'm scared. Yes, Cookie Run. It's a game that's filled to the brim with minors, and they have these sorts of discourse there all the time. Believe it or not, they are trying to find problematic relationships between characters that are cookies. Yes, it's gotten to the point where shipping cookies was a problem. But again, gets darker. It gets worse. I ended up going through her direct messages, and so she gave a lot of people her Discord, which I knew she had, and saw her using it while playing Minecraft with her friends many times. I told you so. If it's not Twitter, it's Discord, or these two together. I checked out the app, and she was in the server that, from what I gather, is run by some claiming to be 24-year-old woman. She would frequently discuss the type of things my daughter was saying. She was also sending links to pornography posted to Twitter, mostly animated. Some of being of real women who she claimed were minor coded, which is a term I still don't understand, but my daughter was using over and over again, and they should not be allowed to be sexually active. Well, dear viewer, if you don't know what minor coding is, it's one of those other terms that the Terminally Online anti-shippers have invented. It's essentially a character that has specific characteristics that a child would have, meaning like innocence, playfulness, some things related to their body type, like being short, being petite, that kind of thing. So that's what they say when they are minor coded, and that's where the meme, the X of consent, has been invented from. So, you know, the height of consent, the eye color of consent. Yes, believe it or not, certain people believe that certain eye types are minor coded, and these people should not be able to give consent because they are minor coded. It gets that is insane, believe me. Let's continue. She would encourage the server that, from what I saw, was almost entirely made out of minors to go harass those people. Even in some cases, tried to find out their personal information she claimed she was sending to law enforcement. Then, in a sarcastic way, he gave them the go-ahead to post it publicly. I think you should have an idea of why I am so disturbed now. I found pictures my child took at school of the girl I mentioned as well. Dozens of them. They'd make fun of her, which would go from typical teenage bullying to extreme threats of violence, and making comments about how she's probably molesting her sister. The adult in the server even asked for more photos of her and told my daughter violent acts she should do to her. The way this woman typed almost made them sound like fantasies. Very disturbing. She's seen my daughter's face and many of the other minors, some of them even younger than my daughter's, because they would do face reveals. I tried to reverse search the image of the woman and found absolutely nothing, so I assume it's a real image. She also would discuss sexual things with my daughter and these other children. They talk about the non-harmful fetishes they have. Her sending them porn is damning enough, but I'm furious. But the other way she'd speak with them was frightening, asking about their sexual preferences, discussing fetishes, and framing herself as a safe adult who can be trusted and act as if her sending pornographic images to children is fine because they're helping fight pedophiles, who, from what I saw, mostly just seem like normal, albeit some more adventurous than others, adults, and some are just kids having fun and being creative, making innocent drawings. I'm not giving my daughter anything back as I'm heading to the police station tomorrow with all her electronics and filing a report. I was smart enough to not delete or report any of the messages as I want this woman to seek jail time. I'm calling her classmate's mother to join me as this concerns her child as well. My husband is just as enraged as I am. I was much more stern with her than me. She freaked out on us completely, told us that the woman she was speaking with wasn't being creepy towards her. She even ended up calling her father a pedophile enabler, saying an adult should not be sending her porn or talking to her like that. Which, by the way, is also what this Discord group referred to anyone who was clean enough for their standards but disagreed with them for obvious reasons. For God's sake, I feel my child has been indoctrinated in some weird anti-pedophile cult. Her behavior has been completely changed over the span of 2 hours. I found that she tried pushing a classmate into suicide over drawings of cartoon characters kissing, and has been being groomed for months. I feel like I'm in a nightmare and a fever dream at the same time. I don't even know what to do in regards to my daughter yet. I haven't told her I'm filing a police report yet, and she's been almost in a manic state all night. The rest of my children are terrified. My other daughter, 13, who has autism and a special interest in art, has told me that her sister has told her about some of this stuff before, and she didn't understand it but said she was really shy about showing her sister any of her drawings in case she got mad because she didn't know what the rules were. My son hopefully knows nothing, but he's shaken up because of all of the screaming. My husband has taken them to McDonald's and their grandparents' house for the night. They were kind enough to take them in this late when I explained our eldest was having a mental health related emergency. She didn't question me further, which I appreciate. I'm home with my daughter. She ended up asking for a hug at one point, her mood swinging very rapidly. I don't know if she'll be able to sleep tonight. I probably wouldn't be able to do anyways. I feel like my whole life has been turned upside down because of this disgusting woman grooming my baby into whatever disgusting evil little group she's running. My daughter is not completely innocent and I'm disgusted and disappointed by her behavior, but how can I not blame this woman but for slowly encouraging it for a year? And quite frankly, sexually grooming her? I'm sure I'm at fault here to some degree, but my daughter has never acted this way. She's been not a violent person. Her sister and her were very close as well. She's always been a gentle soul. The only time she ever raised her voice was to protect her sister, and when she'd been bullied, the only significant bad thing to happen during her childhood was when her grandfather passed away when she was 8. She was quite sad about it for a couple of months, but nothing else traumatizing. Aside from that, we've been decently well-off loving family, and I'm always there and have the time to give them as much attention as they've needed over the years. At least I hope so. I thought I taught her to avoid predators like this. I thought I went above and beyond. I'm a victim of pedophilia myself, so I made sure to be extra careful in teaching them how to keep themselves safe. I feel like a failure as a mother. I don't know who to turn to. Where did I go wrong? What else should I do? I've been debating on taking her to the hospital, but she's in the living room writing it as of right now. This is the calmest she's been in hours, but I'm worried for her safety. I almost don't want to leave her alone because of how erratic she's been acting tonight. She's calmed down about her phone. I think her main concern was seeing the messages, since we already have. Now it's a mix between her crying because of she feels her life is ruined, which she said while she hugged me, and I think her way of saying I know that woman was in the wrong, and screaming at us for being pedophile enablers. And she's made comments that she's going to call the police on us for holding her hostage after we locked up all the sharp objects in the house inside the basement kitchen. She's not locked in the room, she's just not allowed in extra little kitchen nook downstairs. There's been There's barely used and only has sodas in it right now. She's never self-harmed before, but I quite frankly don't know what to expect. Any feedback or advice would be appreciated. And, you know, it just gets darker and darker, unfortunately. But again, as you saw from the beginning, which was the end of the story, it actually had a seemingly good end. Let's continue, because that's not where it ended. Update. I can't put it into words how much I appreciate all of your kind words and amazing advice I've received. I'll try to reply to everyone very soon. I've come to the conclusion after calming down a bit that my daughter fully feels as though she's been doing a good thing. I plan on seeking more help for her regardless, but after night, I'm truly realizing how mentally ill she has been. I still can't pinpoint a reason, but I don't really need to. My job is to find her someone who can. She has to wake up, and the three of us have agreed we are going to the emergency room. I've done a bit of research, and from what I've found, they cannot take her anywhere without my consent, which was my main concern. I use Reddit as a fair bit and have seen the stories, so I think you understand my hesitation when it comes to mental health care facilities for young people. The other girl involved in this father's works odd hours, and he touched bases with me. We plan on gathering evidence as soon as the death threats were sent by the woman grooming my child to theirs, and reporting everything to the local police and sending all the info we can collect to the CyberTip website, and hoping to find more places to report this to as well. I've also been trying to do research in my spare time to figure out more about what's been going on. I'm getting old. Never was big into fan bases when I was a teen myself, but it seems like my child and the other girl involved are not only the ones who've been through this sort of situation, grooming and harassment alike. It's heartbreaking to hear. I would not wish this on anybody. If the emergency room can do much, plan on contacting a children and family service. She clearly does not trust her therapist, as some you have said. This is above Reddit pay grade. I believe this is above her therapist as well. I would like to apologize to everyone for coming on here. I've come to Reddit for other more mild parenting advice, and from my own experience as a victim, it being discussed with the entire family was very hard on me. I had nowhere else to go, and you all went above and beyond with help. Once again, I appreciate everything, and I will be replying soon. I hope you all have a lovely day or night. Update 2. It's been a long day, but I feel like we've made a lot of headway. Thanks to a lot of your advice, I feel like we've made a lot of progress. We ended up leaving the emergency room. The receptionist had asked us when we tried checking if she was suicidal or trying to harm herself or others. At the moment, she was not. I tried my best to explain the situation, and they essentially told us we've been needing to wait a while, or we should contact a primary doctor or therapist. While we waited for almost an hour, I had read through a lot of the mix of comments and hearing a lot of you guys' traumatic experiences, which I can tell you all how sorry I am you had to experience that. I made the decision to leave, and we went to a patient care center instead. Someone had commented a very helpful link in regards to speaking with a brainwashed person, and it improved my husband and I's communication extremely. My daughter was beginning to express feelings of confusion in regards to feelings about all of this in general. She agreed she needs medical attention, as she felt almost as if she was out of the control last night, and described herself as feeling miserable. She also did end up apologizing to us and told us that it isn't our fault, we don't understand. I do view this as a form of progress on some level. Patient care was a lifesaver. Was a lot more clear-headed, and I believe I might have explained myself to the staff much better. We had to wait an extremely long time because they wanted my daughter and I to meet up with the doctor on staff. We had some training in I believe this was supposed to be psychology. I was only able to speak with the doctor privately for around 5 minutes, and I tried to explain everything that was going on and everything I learned. She had told me she's never heard her whole anti-related stuff, but it did reassure me I was not overreacting and gave me many resources on part-time care facilities, some of which specialized in sexual abuse and cult-like abuse. She informed me one of them is also very accommodating in regards to patients dealing with psychotic episodes. My daughter joined us again, and she then asked if I was reporting. My daughter looked incredibly scared and mad when I said yes, but her facial expression almost looked like one of relief after a while. She had brought up since. What I might have messed up was I kept her phone on and I made sure it was charged. By the time morning came, everyone seemed suspicious on that server, and the woman seemed rather frantic about removing messages in my daughter's account from the server. I, pretending to be my daughter, had sent a reply saying I wasn't in the mood in the talk right now, that I got grounded. They bought it. I'm only worried if that will mess up any investigation or not. Police officers showed up and we all gave testimonies. My daughter wasn't very talkative, I assume. The officer had told me this will likely go to federal level after I had shown him some of the messages. Also, they would contact me further and ask for her classmates' information as well, to take their testimonies. Luckily, they had saved a large chunk of harassment she had received, had been a screenshot. Had called ahead of time to inform them, and her mother said she's been gathering information. The police and staff at Patient Care suggested getting a case worker for our daughter, and I feel it's the best option. I'm not sure if any blow-ups like that would continue, and I don't want my other children to have to go through that again. We all ended up visiting my in-laws. The kids have had sleepovers that there are many times they weren't too started, but were very happy to see their sister was okay and her grandparents were as well. Had a bit of talk with my younger daughter because I wanted to make sure she wasn't impacted too poorly by things her sister had told her. Luckily, she wasn't. I assure her there are no rules to her creativity as long as she keeps everything she posts PG. At least until she's older, which made her laugh and call me gross. First time I've smiled since all of this began. My daughter, husband, and I are currently at home and I'm making dinner. My husband searched her room pretty heavily to make sure she didn't have any electronics she can contact people on, so no worries there. I'm about to prepare a late dinner. I'll try to get to all comments and direct messages soon, but the sheer number of them is quite overwhelming. I have to read and appreciate all of them aside from a few trolls. A big shout out to the people younger than myself who did the best to educate me on this whole fandom drama stuff. I seriously cannot thank you guys enough. I was so lost and you all gave a complete stranger so much support and kindness. My faith in humanity has definitely been restored a bit after I had lost some. Just to answer a few questions I've been receiving, I gather the energy to reply. Does your eldest daughter have autism? My eldest daughter has never been tested for autism, but I'm curious if this is a possibility. My middle child received her diagnosis mostly because of how her intense her session issues are, but I know boys are diagnosed with a lot more. I might do some more research and brush up on my knowledge as I really only know how my daughter's autism affects her and how to help her with it. I don't understand the experience of anyone else besides a basic science list. Everyone's mind works differently, and that applies autistic people as well. Does your child know about your trauma? No, I've never told her. She absolutely has known what predators are since I felt she was old enough to not call them bad people anymore, so she was educated on what one exactly is, and an adult who preys on children. I had to explicitly told her when she was old enough to sign up for Instagram that if people sent her anything inappropriate, to inform me or her father and block them. I didn't want my children to bear that information about myself. When me and my therapist, it's not their jobs to be sad because something bad happened to me as a kid. Do you think there's more trauma she had you could be unaware of? There's always that possibility. Even if none of this happened, as every victim responds differently and not every kid shows warning signs. There's always a chance this is also a maladaptive coping mechanism for her to deal with something else that slid past me. I deeply hope not, but that's the case. I hope she feels comfortable telling me, and more importantly, the professionals we plan on finding her. This reminds me of QAnon. Me as well. Only a predatory version. From what I gather, not everyone in these communities is a child groomer or these types to send death threats. However, it seems like a lot of them are. This is gaining a lot of this insight. I hope this doesn't just stay in fan-based communities anymore, and other parents can stay vigilant, especially if they hear the children discussing these sorts of topics a lot. This, unfortunately, I imagine is not the case for a lot of them, probably most of them, because you see what goes on in those spaces, especially on social media, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these kids that act this particular way. So a lot of the parents there won't be as vigilant as this person. Let's finish off this story. Please make sure to contact the FBI. I definitely plan on it if this police investigation goes nowhere. I'm not allowing them access to my daughter's electronic devices unless I'm positive they are actually working with my local FBI office or a child cybercrimes unit of some kind. It feels as like so incredible easy to track this woman down if the right people are involved. And then this person got some comments she also replied to. So let's take a look at them before we end this story. Oh boy, this seems like your daughter has gotten involved with Antishippers, a really fanatical group of people who go to extreme measures to harass people who enjoy fictional relationships that they deem problematic. For reference, these kinds of groups exist in very niche corners of certain fan bases of media and came into existence as a reaction against pro-shippers. People who are for fictional relationships that may be deemed problematic. Either way, it's petty internet drama that should never have been taken to real life, and your daughter is in need of serious help. I'd recommend, first of all, getting her serious psychological help. The most important things to understand are the ability to distinguish reality from fiction, how it's never okay to harass people over fiction, as well as understanding parasocial relationships online and how they form. I wish you great luck with your child, and I'm saddened to know that the petty Twitter drama has affected another child into nearly taking their own life. Which she replied with, "This is the only comment I'm replying to until later today, but I found about the term antis right as I viewed your comment. I'm deeply concerned this is the only time this has happened. You're very much hitting the nail on the head in regards to her not grasping the difference between fiction and reality when analyzing our conversation with a slightly cleaner head. When you hear that sort of thing, it sounds at first as if my child fully believes these characters exist, but it applies to the situation 100%. I feel now that she genuinely believes on the same level she is helping others. I very much appreciate it and your 2 cents. After figuring out a lot of the culture surrounding this sort of thing, a lot makes me sense. I can only hope that people, and especially teens, can just enjoy their non-harmful nerdy stuff in peace. I plan on making as many calls as it takes to get her help she deserves." Another comment. Wow, just wow. A lot to unpack, but I definitely think a trip to the hospital is needed. If you can't trust her to be alone, there's a problem, and she needs to be seen by a professional immediately. Which he replied, there's sort of a big 50-50 on if we should right now, considering we finally got her to sleep. But I do plan on having my husband watch over her tomorrow and possibly try to get her an emergency therapy session at bare minimum. I don't know if I'm approaching the situation too gently, because I know some parents would just take her to the police stations themselves. Her behavior is so alarming and out of character. I just want to lose my baby. This doesn't feel like a tough lesson moment. Another one. Contact the Youth and Family Services non-profit agency in your community. Your daughter may as well be require urgent psychiatric care, and your hunch and concern about self-harm should be trusted. Assuming your background story about abuse-free upbringing is accurate, please don't blame yourself. I used to serve as a youth counselor for the country sheriff's department of probation and parole. My clients were young felons under 18. There was a small but certain percentage of kids raised in good homes who just went bad, really bad sometimes. The cause was never identified. If your daughter's behavior escalates during the night, do get her to the ER. To which she replied, I seriously never considered that. Thank you so much for this. If she can get through the night, I think that might be the best course of action. I don't want her to feel as if we're getting her locked up. I've heard so many horror stories about long and even short stay mental health centers for teens. Considering the trauma I just found out about, the last thing I want to add more on top of it. The only trauma I know of before tonight was the death of her grandfather. She did have some mild bullying she went through in 5th grade, but very much held her own, and she's been in therapy since. Once again, thank you for your kind words and suggestion. I do plan on contacting one in the morning. And lastly, I cannot even imagine how you are feeling. As a parent, I am sure you are scared and very troubled by your child's behavior. You are doing everything right. You are addressing the issue head on. Also, protecting your other children from this is also important. I would suggest looking up brainwashing, especially in children. There are several searches that might help you with guidance on how to help right now. Imagine she has been brainwashed is probably the closest you can get to explaining this. Just know that this is not your fault. Perhaps there is a link between making her aware of dangers to perhaps stronger degree, and most so she has internalized fear. I would make the therapist aware of this. I would explain her vulnerability, being more hyper-aware than most. I'm sure we all get through this together. You are stronger than you know. And links to this person, to this website about brainwashing. And then she replied with, I'm currently making another update, but I just want to say I've read through most of the comments, including this one. And I cannot begin to tell you how thankful I am for that link. It's beyond helpful us in getting her to be open about seeking help and being able to communicate with her in general. I seriously feel this type of thing should be common knowledge nowadays, considering how rapidly people can get radicalized into different groups and cults. Not to mention, who knows what can trigger psychosis. It can happen to anyone, really. It's something I never thought about until it happened to my daughter. I appreciate your help and I can't thank you enough. Heart emoji. And that's the end of this story, and as you can probably predict, upon seeing this story being spread around on Twitter, a lot of people did not believe it was real. But listen, even if it's not real, even if this particular example is not from our reality and it's pure fiction, the situations like these do in fact happen, because they happened in the past, and unfortunately I'm quite sure they will be happening in the future as well. And when it comes to a child acting like this, there's thousands of examples of people acting like that on social media, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen. And if you're in any kind of internet niche fandom that has characters that are being subject to any kind of shipping, you'll be seeing a lot more of that than in others. Deltarune fandom, Undertale fandom. What else is there that's popular nowadays? I guess if we go to anime fandom, it's going to be the Boku no Hero Academia fandom, that kind of thing. You'll see that kind of discourse there all the time. But again, even if this story is fictional itself, it serves as a very good warning sign to anyone with a child that has been subject to this type of behavior. So again, no matter how diligent you can be, as was the hero of today's story, there's still gonna be people that are gonna out-manipulate any means you use to warn your child. They're gonna have ways to get into your child's brain in order to mix things up and make them question their own reality, and then they will use your child for their own nefarious purposes. And that's a sad reality of our existence, and the sad reality of online existence for these kids. I don't believe most of these people are beyond help. If they only decided to listen, to reason. But other than that, it's probably best to just ignore them and enjoy your fandom, or enjoy your show, enjoy your fictional media the way you want to enjoy it, and just don't engage in online discourse. I don't think this type of anti-culture will go away anytime soon, but I can only hope that the people that are part of it are just gonna grow out of it someday. But for right now, that's everything, and I hope to see you in the next one.